Welcome back to the Softpreneur podcast, where anti-establishment thought leaders and holistic wellness visionaries get clear on how to build a business like nobody else's business. I'm Dawn Petrin.
And I'm Elyssa Joachim, and we co-create All Connected Agency. We help the wellness industry's most disruptive thought leaders express their essence louder and prouder to create more profitability and possibility. And now, it's your turn. And this week we are super excited because we spoke to one of my very best friends, Camilla Blossom. She's followed a fairy shamanism path for some time. She's a spiritual mentor, a land alchemist, a medicine woman. And we talked to her about the nature of business as stewardship.
And some of what you can expect from this episode is what it really means to steward the earth and why we might not be here to heal the earth, simple ways to deepen your relationship to the earth, land, and nature spirits, healing ancestral wounds in relationship to earthwork, and maybe why being human isn't the problem, and that you might have a unique opportunity as a human being at this time. So, let's dive in.
Hi, Camilla. Thank you so much for being here with us on this felicitous day. We are so grateful to chat with you. And for the listeners out there, Camilla and I met on 11/11 at 11:11-ish a.m. in 2015. I believe. And I had, through a series of interesting events, found myself in Oregon, Portland, and was looking to learn more about flower essences. And I went to a women's herbal conference, and everyone basically was like, oh, you want to learn about flower essences? You need to meet Camilla Blossom. You need to meet this woman. And we had a phone conference because when I went to her website, it said fairies and nature spirits and myrrh and elementals. And I was like, where has Camilla been all my life? And we had about a 2-hour conversation on the phone the first time we chat. So that was before we met in person. And we decided we would meet at Catherine Creek Arch. And yeah, I am so grateful to Camilla in so many ways. And I'm just so excited to have you here and really wanted to talk about earth stewardship as one of our fields.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited. It's been such a beautiful journey to share these teachings and wisdom with you and seeing what has come of that, the beauty and openings and awakenings that you've had over the years. And this, what you and Dawn are created, it's so beautiful and helpful to so many like that.
Yay. Thank you. Yes, Camilla, thank you so much for being here. One of the things we really want to bring out, like as our mission, not just with this podcast, but perhaps in, this incarnation on this planet, is the idea that the work we do in exchange for, currency can be done with a spirit of stewardship. And it was like, how are we really gonna speak about this? How are we really gonna bring this idea about in a way that feels like in alignment with us? And when Elyssa said that you were willing to come in and speak about it, as well as like flower essences and everything about your business, I was just so just so grateful. So yeah, thank you. I can't wait to dig in. But before we dig into flower essences, although this might be the answer, and business as stewardship, I would love to ask, what is your spiritual practice, and are you comfortable sharing a little bit about it here with us and our listeners?
I'd love to. I kind of view what I do as kind of animistic, if you've heard that expression. And that's very much how Native Americans, Indigenous people see the world, the spirit in everything. And what I realized was, as I started on my spiritual path, and recognizing I'm an empath and a sensitive and very mergy with nature, connected in my being and part nature being, feeling like I am, that kind of view felt most like me. And so that's sort of how I opened more and more to working with nature and the flowers and the trees and the land and the water So all these different aspects. And then what also just a little bit of my story, and I do have this in like my book, but it's this way that the different elementals of Mother Earth kind of apprenticed me. They would approach me at different times. Like the mermaids would appear, and then the flower fairies to make the essences, and then the gnomes to work with our businesses. Elyssa has a little experience of that one. He was around for some of that, and moving to Hawaii for a bit to work with the fire and so a lot of my spirituality has really blended in my career and the business I created. And I know that you both are very much in alignment with wanting that and bringing forward that way. Yeah, bringing that through. So I feel like it is, my spirituality is who I am and is my business and my practice in life. So it's all very blended.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. That is super beautiful and exactly, you're right, what we're about. May I ask, just for people who haven't heard of animism before, do you want to share what that means to you with us?
Yeah, it's basically believing that everything is alive. And this is really from my own experience as I went on. Like, I think earlier in my life, I would see kind of a oneness and didn't separate out things. But then when I got involved with working with very shamanism and trees and plants, I realized, oh, well, they're kind of talking to me. It became kind of a whisper in the land and the different spirits and the ancestors. And so as I opened to these different voices and listened and realized I could hear it and hear them, then there was relationships formed, and not just with the Mother Earth and her spirit, but also these individual beings that were coming forward. And so animism to me is just that ability to communicate and honor and respect and have a reciprocal relationship between a tree and yourself or a fairy and yourself, and being open to that language of nature. And that may not be English or words, or may just be feelings, right? But there is this, and I think most of us recognize if we go to a place we love in nature, we can feel something or have some kind of experience. To me, that's that relationship, that honoring and that respecting, that stewardship, right? I know this is all about that. Like, how do we show up? And I just have to say, I just so love that you guys are doing this and approaching it this way, approaching your whole work and sharing it. I was just with a tree sister yesterday, and we were talking about the old style of business in this world. And to me, it really is old now. And like, it's capitalism. It's aggressive marketing. It's all these things that I never could do well, right? It's like playing Monopoly as a kid. I was sucked at it, right? And that's kind of what we think or thought was required to do well. And so I love that you're bringing through this softer, more feminine, more gentle way, how we create. And I am totally right in alignment with that. And it feels like the spirits of nature want us to be like them and be with them and be in communication and not keep trying those old ways, right?
So beautiful. Yes. And this makes me think too, like over the years, Camilla and I kind of are little business gnomes, executive fairies for each other. Those are the words. And often it's like we'll tune in together, kind of go into meditation together and get messages. And they'll often be like, you need to play more, or you need to enjoy more. And it's so clear that like really one of those abundant secrets has to do with like play, or how are you tending to yourself, or how are you nurturing yourself. And Camilla, from what I've seen and experienced too, so much of your work is about nurturance and, you know, holding yourself and others and the land and nature spirits with so much compassion and love. And yeah, I just wanted to reflect that.
Thank you. It reminds me, can I just share a little gnome thing? When we were working together I had a unicorn garden, which is a whole nother story, but we were really doing a lot of work about abundance and business and how does this work and how do we do it and how do we bring more of the spirit of nature and those relationships in. And so the gnomes, those as spirits, they came in and they were giving us very specific messages. And for example, they told me focus on mentorship. That was one of the messages. And the other was, we have colors for your new website. So they picked the colors. I actually just changed them. For years, I had forest green and a dark purple. And they're like, and gold. And they're like, these are the colors you need to put. They're really into color. And I don't know if there's something you want to share, Lisa, but it was fun, like getting very specific because they're earth elementals. So they're very physical and they're into abundance, right? They mine for treasures.
Yeah, completely. And it was so funny because we had this like kind of sister nature retreat, and so much of it we ended up getting downloads for our businesses and branding and visuals and what we were putting out in the world. And it was kind of this very beautiful blend of like, yes, you can walk and tend and steward the earth, and like taking action from that inspiration. And with that too, it's like that phrase, earth walking or earth tending, stewarding. I feel like those are all concepts I've heard from you, Camilla. So I'd love to ask you too, how do you conceptualize being an earth steward or walker? Or what are the words that are alive for you in that practice right now?
Yeah, I'm always playing with words too, but I know you are too. The earth walker word really came in strongly. And it was especially when I was moving around a lot. I was like moving to Hawaii and moving back, moving here and there, and then not living anywhere and traveling. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is really earth, like moving lightly on the earth, traveling, being in different locations, receiving medicine from the land and the plants in different places. And then lately I've been in what I call earth keeper, because I'm living in one place and I'm kind of, especially during the pandemic, right? Kind of settling in one place and kind of tending what's here and around. So I'm kind of more in an earth keeper phase, I feel. So I think a lot of people can relate, right? I know, Elyssa, you travel a lot and move around. So, but there's different phases for what kind of stewarding we're drawn to, and maybe different stages of our life, what that looks like. Are we gardening or tending land that we're going to be on for, years? Or is this just a place for the day that we want to think into and honor for the spirits there? So yeah, I think people use different words, but those are some I've been playing with.
Thank you. And Camilla, just for some context for our listeners and for them to hear how kind of beautiful and powerful the work that you do on land is, can you describe a bit the land mentorship or the types of ways you help others steward the land that they're lots of the word steward, but steward the land that they're stewarding?
Yeah, for sure. I call that work land alchemy, and that includes everything from helping do it, like doing sessions or ceremony remotely or on the land, and also teaching students, mentees how to do that. Like I have that in my patron community and been doing that for quite a while. And it's such a rich and beautiful experience that helping people really make relationship where they live with the land, with the spirits, the ancestors. Often a lot of indigenous ancestors, fairies, tree spirits. There's all this like unseen realms of nature wherever we are. And many of us who are intuitive and sensitive may tune in already or have a relationship, but there's this beautiful way we can build that. And what that does is really kind of awakens the land. It awakens places and helps it feel good and have a more communication for what the purpose of the land is. What does the land want? Where does it want its gardens? How does it want to interact with you? And then part of that is a lot of shamanic practices and protocols that are like clearing the old energy. A lot of places have ghosts, or they have historical imprints, or they have people's that, had difficult experience there and aspects of their soul, or just a lot of kind of energetic debris or things that can gather on land. And it's such an interesting thing. I've had a lot of experiences with this where we're doing land clearing and harmonizing and really calling in the land council, which is all the spirits there to do it with me and the people that are there. So it's this beautiful dance, but it's often such an interesting thing because let's say someone's had a lot of weird things going on the land. There's been like, oh, people lived here, there was a suicide, or there was abuse, or there was, these ghost hauntings, or even just more subtle things like issues with water is very common, like the pipes or something, or floods or clear cutting. So what happens is when land has gone through trauma, just like our bodies, when we've had trauma, it all lives in the physical, that energetic experience, right? It's the same as like us. It can live in our body until we heal and surface it and bring resolution. And the same with land. I really used a lot of my energy healing with people experiences and found, oh my God, the earth is so similar. Like there's this trauma in these places, and there's portals, which are like chakras, right? That also create a lot of circulation of energy. And if they're clogged up, with this history, they can create issues too. So there's just this ability to tap in that I'm teaching for intuitive, the energies of what goes on land so that we can bring clearing and healing, resolution, and psychopomp work, which is like clearing gums. So there's a lot of really amazing things. And the piece I wanted to share on that, like if the land has been through a really hard experience and trauma, it will attract others that have something to do with that, right? Like that pattern in their ancestry or that issue or something. There's an attractor field. So I've noticed this again and again, working with land and then seeing what issues people are going through. And then the land, oh my God, if you look at the historical imprints, there's this war that went on, or there's a burial ground, or this happened here. Or even one simple example, I was like doing one recently, and there was a historical imprint about, oh, there's all these animals that are fighting each other. They're having a big fight. And then afterwards she goes, oh my God, we have all these cat fights in the backyard. I'm like, okay, there it is. They'll probably go away now, right? So it's just like a really fascinating kind of investigation. I know I've worked with Elyssa in a couple places too, if you want to ask anything there. But it's such a gift to places and to the earth to kind of awaken, right? Like we're all going through this massive spiritual awakening, and we can support ourselves and the earth by doing that kind of work as well.
Super beautiful. Yeah, it makes me think. And I have a lot of fun examples of experiences we've had. One is just that teaching of reciprocity. And often when we're making a flower essence or working with fairies or elementals, like Camilla creates these beautiful offerings for land or for earth and asks students often to offer from their heart, like with the offering as a giving. And to me, it's such an evidence of like we receive so much through that act of giving.
So as you were speaking, Camilla, so many things came to mind. The British Columbia, where I live in Canada, is just really seen as this like pristine place of beauty, national parks, etc. And you talk a lot about the clean energy that we have. And the clean energy is derived from 80 years ago. They, being the governments of Canada and the United States, got together and dammed the waterways and created, like the place I was living before, the settlers had planted like beautiful orchards. And before that, it had been a gathering place for Indigenous nations for years because it was so fertile. And when the dams hit, they flooded so many areas that have been, fertile grounds for millennia. And then on top of that, of course, there's clear cutting. And then, so that's where I am. And then also, I mean, as a culture since, the scientific revolution and before, we have been living in this world where, I think Hobbes said that, the life of mankind is nasty, brutish, and short. And we need to, literally said we need to rape the earth in order to bring it forth, like bring forth abundance and a better, easier life for mankind. So as you were speaking, all of this, so much came flooding through. And I wondered how you might offer to people of this time, regardless of our cultural descent, but maybe also based on our ancestry, how we can start to give back. I think that you have a quote, we're not trying to heal the earth, we're trying to heal our relationship with. Like, how can we start to do that in small ways? And also in relation to this idea of our businesses as entrepreneurs, how can we start to, because I'm not all against the idea of capitalism, but I am really having difficulty with the idea of greed over. So how can we start to be in exchange with each other in the earth in ways that begin to work with those imprints that ourselves, our ancestors, and our nations have left on the earth?
Yeah, there's a lot to that question, so I'll do the best. But one of the things I would say is, first of all, is to really honor your own ancestors, honor the path. If you feel like there's a lot of feelings of shame and guilt and negativity about being a human, I think there's some real healing there to do about that you do matter, that you are important, that nature, you are part of nature and co-creating with nature and the earth and business and everything is like where we are and going towards. So I think like being really gentle and compassionate to our own journey with this, because I know a lot of people I've worked with and just some of the things you said, like we feel like, oh my God, as humans, we're like villainize ourselves, right? Because of the rapes of the forest and all these horrible things. But to understand in a really compassionate way, like we've been locked in this matrix of kind of brainwashing that's taken us away from the truth of our humanity. And so I think that kind of healing with our ancestors and ourselves and our own, like knowing we matter and like it makes a huge difference for one person, for you to go down to the river and pray, let's say, just go down and love the water and bring some flowers. The mermaids love yellow flowers and crystals, So that's sort of at the beginning, right? Because I think there's so much healing we all have about guilt and shame in all these ways. Like, oh my God, like humans, clear cut and all that, right? And the fairy realm and the nature realms, they see into our hearts. They see who we are. They know. And I've had experiences of like living on land, my son out on this river and like doing all this stuff. It's where I met the mermaid and with gnomes and all these things. And then years later, I brought my friend back there for a visit. And as soon as I got there, we both just started weeping. And it was like all the fairy realms and all the spirits there came to say, hey, Camilla, it's nice to see you again. And it's like, okay, they know who we are, right? And they know who I am because I love them and I care for them and I leave offerings. I ask permission to go places, to enter places, like certain basic practices of reciprocity. And so I'd say some of the basics are offerings and permission. And when I say permission, it's kind of the idea, like with humans, there's a big thing about consent, right? That word, like you need consent to engage with each other in certain ways. Well, if you look at nature and recognize it's alive and there's spirits around, there's indigenous guardians, there's dragons, whatever you believe in, and you look at where you go, especially like sacred lands or into forests, like bring an offering, bring some cornmeal or flowers or mica or some that I love to use, or some holy water, or sing a song and just sort of enter with the idea that you're not just a tourist. That's like one way I love to enter, like let's say going in a forest or even going in your backyard. Like, okay, I would like to enter deeper into the landscape, deeper into this experience, more heart connected, more honoring, and then just kind of pray and ask for that approach. And then take a little offering and sprinkle that on the land. So I'd like to gift this to all the spirits here, to spirits I see and the ones I don't see. Could be some animals too, and birds, a tree, and bring your love and your gratitude. And actually, I've heard that bringing your gratitude can actually change your brain waves and drop you in to your body more, into your heart, your womb and heart. And then just ask permission. May I enter this forest or this place or this yard with attunement to who's here, to the spirit here, to the sacredness, to the beauty, to the gift of this place, or whatever your prayer that wants to come through in the moment. And it's such an amazing thing because, like, we were talking about Catherine Creek earlier, that Elyssa and that, and I would go there quite a bit because it's kind of a real initiatory place to go. It's got a stone arch and sacred trees and a creek and lots of wildflowers. And there was this area that just felt like a portal, like an opening that takes you a little deeper in. It's just sort of at the top of this hill. And then as soon as you enter it, you kind of start walking down towards the creek and the trees and the arch. And whenever I'd get there, I'd sort of feel, like there's a little pause. So this is another thing you might notice when you're out, like a certain kind of gateway energetically. And if you're intuitive and sensitive, just ask to feel that and go, I'm feeling a little like, okay, this must be. And so this is just a little going deeper with it. I felt like, okay, I'm going to put my offering here. I'm going to ask permission. And I'm also going to ask the guardian of this land, because it's a sacred place, and ask the guardian land for permission to enter as well. So you can also add that if you feel like it. And I did that there, and the guardian approached. And so every time I go, I would do that. So I have a relationship with this guardian of the land. And it's almost like, oh, hey, Camilla. It's like they know you. And they're like, all of a sudden, when I walk into that place, it's like magic opens, the land opens, the energy opens, the fairies, the trees, the experience we can have. It's just exponentially multiplied, right? Because we're, not just being a tourist, which is fine to be a tourist at times, just walking through and looking around. But I think we're all longing for something so much deeper. We can just go a little more intentional in our tourism, then we can have much more profound and initiatory experiences.
Amazing. You just said so much there. Thank you so much. There's the first thing that you brought up, I think really relates to something that's been noodling around in my brain for a while now in relation to some of the mainstream conversation around being human. And it relates to animism, which I think a lot of us believe that humans, and this, I'm not including myself in this, but a lot of people believe that humans are bad. I've heard people say we're a cancer on the earth. And I feel like instead of that being a healing thing, or a lot of people, what am I trying to say here? A lot of people think we're overpopulated, and so we should just stop having babies, and it would be better if there weren't humans anymore. And so this first thing you brought up about getting in touch with our ancestors, and really if you're feeling that there's healing work to do, thank you. I just want to thank you for that. And also this idea that we matter, and that we're here and we're meant to be here. And as I believe, as far as if there was a religion that I would probably be animist as well, in that I believe everything is totally alive in ways that I can't even fathom. And if everything is alive, then having respect for everything is going to do a lot for moving us forward. But it starts with respect for ourselves and the role that we can play, I believe, as the closer thing. And then I also used to, when I first moved to this area, for the first couple of years, actually, I almost sang to the lake every single day because of having read this book that just I was like, oh shoot, I didn't know this about this area. And I sang to it almost every single day, but the only water song I knew was an African song, like Ide Wede Wede. So it was this interesting, oh boy, be good to both get in contact with my ancestors and the songs they might have sang, and also the people of this land, which and so I have spoken to some of the indigenous and asked, like, are there water songs we need to sing to her? So yeah, I love those two things. And then I think something around the offering, the asking permission and not being a tourist. I'm sure this looks different for everyone. Yeah. And I love it. Not being a tourist, but really like, and by taking ownership, I don't mean in this like sort of like settler colonial, I own this land, but like taking ownership for our place in the ecosystem when we go in. And I wonder if you would speak to, so I study with some local herbalists and we were speaking about the leave no trace sort of ideology. And one of the things they said is that the indigenous people in this land actually used to steward and tend to the land. So they weren't necessarily leaving no trace. They were actually working towards betterment with the land at all times. And so I wonder if you have an opinion, some wisdom around leave no trace versus being in a symbiosis, I guess. I wonder if you could speak to that for a moment.
Yeah, I love the story for this. I'm in the Pacific Northwest, and one of the plants I worked with allows camas, the beautiful flower that grows in the spring, and that Native people worked very closely with that plant, and they would cultivate. They would use it ceremonially for in there, right? You probably have it where you are too. And so it was just beautiful to hear how their relationship was so strong with this plant and the spirit and the ceremony, and they were so at one with that relationship that they would use these sticks and kind of like separate and like grow more, like cultivate them in the wild so that they could have more, help nature grow more. And that is a common thing. And just to share, well, also I remember meeting, like I met the spirit of Camas at one point, and it was like an indigenous ancestor. And it was so interesting to have the honor, like, wow, like you're like a medicine person, Camas spirit, and see that they would like the plants want to work with us. The land wants to work with us. They're like dying to work with the humans again. And our ancestors did that. We all were farmers and, growing and fishing and all these things in nature. So it's really nature calling us back to be doing all these things together. So that's really the relationship nature wants from us, right? Is for us to remember, like, yeah, come out there, come out to the water, come out and fish and pick the berries and learn the trees and go say, oh yeah, the other piece I wanted to share from my friend who's been a teacher, Marshall Golden Eagle Jack, and he is Paiute and Washoe in like Nevada or California area. And when he was a little boy, he said all the elders would go up into the mountains, the Sierras in California. And he's like, he'd ask his grandmother, well, where is everyone? Where they're, he goes, oh, they're up for the spring, camping in the forests up there so they can talk to the trees, check out what's going on. There was even box fairies that would tell them how everything was doing. And so they would check in with the water and the plants and the trees and kind of, how's everything doing this year? And then they would pray and they would have a ceremony and really honor the water every spring, because they knew that the water that flowed down from the mountains was what fed everything. It fed the land, it fed the people, it fed the animals, it fed the trees, it went into the Mother Ocean. And when you told me that story, I just was like, oh my God, I would just cry. And I ended up traveling with him for several years doing water ceremony with people. And it was so inspired by this kind of grandmother energy of praying and bringing that sacredness back and remembering. And we are part of this experience of the earth. It's just, we've gotten so disconnected. And I don't know if there's something else you're asking, but I just sort of went on a roll there. So if there's something else there.
No, that's amazing. Also, that is the same plant spirit that my teachers were speaking about when we spoke about, because I'm in Pacific Northwest too, when we spoke about like, and that we only know so little, right? We only know so little of the stewardship that was happening in those times as well. So yeah, thank you for sharing. I love this idea of singing to the water up high. And then it nourishes everything. Yeah.
Yeah. And I wanted to share too, like these practices, just a little bit can go such a long way. Just one offering in nature, you can feel immediately a shift or at least that's how I've experienced it. Like we give and give our hearts to the land when we enter it, and we receive these. For me, it's like a rush of energy through my whole body and through all of me. And so it's like, it doesn't necessarily have to be, it can grow into larger practice, and any small moment or small offering we make can create a change. It's on the level of that individual is deeply powerful.
Yes, definitely. I mean, it can be as simple as gratitude practice, right? Going outside and being grateful for the land around you, the trees.
Yeah. I love it. I really think one thing I want to highlight in this episode is that it's possible that the spirit of disconnect from all of the everything is the reason that we are, acting more exploitatively. I don't even know how to say that. Exploiting the earth rather than like being in relationship with her. And that maybe as human beings, whether we live in the concrete jungle of the city, or we're lucky enough to be close to the earth, let me try to say close to the more wild living spaces, that recognizing that we are the earthing as ourselves, and that we are in relation with all beings on the earth, and that everything is alive, that even just bringing that awareness in and tending to it is likely to, cultivate this movement of being stewards or earth walkers or earth tenders rather than earth exploiters. Yeah, I'm wondering if that
I mean, I really
resonates,
think like
Camilla.
whatever spiritual practice or religion or anything, what someone is connected to or resonates with, to me, it really just comes back to the idea of oneness, that we are all one, and that we are like each a cell in a massive organism of earth and this experience of life here. And so, yeah, that's kind of been my experience and what I see with different spiritual practices, right? That we're not really separate. And I think as we move from a more 3D awareness, right, and into more of our spiritual awakening and evolution that's happening, like, experiencing that, whether we're super aware of what that means, that it is bringing us into that space of, more community, less I focus, more we, us, unity, and even with our businesses, how we cross pollinate, how we connect, how nature can help inform the way that we want to relate and support and work with each other, right? And our businesses and how we want to share it, and that everyone can be abundant. There's no need that it's one person can have everything and no one else. Like in this new world we're creating, right? We're weaving abundance and prosperity for all, success for all, just that each of us get to express whatever it is that's who we are and who we be, and celebrate that, right? And that everyone can be supported, and then doesn't have to be so rigid in certain ways and greedy and in the kind of paradigm we're creating it ourselves or in the earth.
I love it. Camilla, can you tell us where our listeners can learn more from you? For example, I know that you are also launching a podcast, so I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about that podcast and what you are going to be bringing out in it. I also know you have a book. I'd love to hear about that. Yeah, places people can connect with you, as well as if you have one or two ways that we might be able to, whether we feel intuitive or empathic or not, begin to invite in that connection with the earth.
Well, I have my website, which is with my name, CamillaBlossom.com. And there's a lot of things on there about what I'm up to. I have Patreon community where I work with grass guardians, tree keepers, circle, and land alchemists. So that's kind of where I do a lot of my sharing and teaching. Also do one-on-one mentorship. I have a YouTube channel. And then my podcast is like a YouTube and podcast. I just started it a few days ago. So we're kind of excited that we're all launching this more expression and sharing of our work. So my podcast is called Earth Magic Tree Keeper. And so I have been working a lot with flower essences and plant energy medicine for a long time, as well as ancestral work and land work. But I'm really getting called by the trees. But what I realized, the trees are in deep relationship with all of the fairies and elementals and the earth and their earth's wisdom keepers and healers. And so the podcast will have a lot of tree magic and experiences and journeys. And also for those who want to like go deeper into that work, I do have the Tree Keeper Circle on Patreon. So, and I also am going to have guests and different things about earthwork and gnomes and whoever kind of inspires me intuitively to be shared on that podcast. And that is on Spotify and Podbean, and my YouTube channel, is Camilla Blossom 1111. It doesn't always come up just with my name. So Apple 1111. And then my book is called Sacred Spirits of Gaia, Co-Creating a New Earth with the Fairies, Elementals, Ancestors, and Spirits of Land. And so that really is kind of a memoir and stories and experiences of a lot of these things I've talked about, kind of how I got on my path, personal, a memoir in there too. And then also, this is another way that for people who want to learn more and learn some rituals that you can do, I have rituals in there. I have voices from plant spirits, the trees, the fairies, the ancestors, and what they want to say, and what some rituals that we can do, simple things we can do to connect. So that's kind of a really nice body of work that can be a reference tool. And I actually have a deck of oracle cards that go with it, with all the pictures of all that my friend Andrea done back to me. So that's really fun because you can use them together or apart. But the cards you can who would I want to work with today? Or who wants to speak to me on the land today? And you can pick a card and hummingbird. And so I have things like that create more magic. But and a lot of the things I've been talking about, I think gratitude, understanding reciprocity, making an altar on your land or in your house with intention are really powerful. I know each person has a really different practice. And also, if you feel like you need help getting started, that is what I do in my mentorship. A lot of the work that I do is very initiatory. So kind of help rebirth, renew, or open to the spirit realms or your garden or the earth, like that kind of opening is sort of where I start with people and help them access more of their own gifts and also move through what may be blocking that. Because there's a lot of things with our ancestral work, with trauma, with all those kinds of things, the healing. So I kind of include that in the mentorship. So it's kind of nice to have ways to do the deeper healing if needed and also move into the joy and the relationships and how do we open and move through, the healing process and move into the wholeness without getting stuck too much in the stories of our lives, right? So I think I'm kind of a bridge person that way. Yeah, so those are ways you can connect. And also, I have a free consult if you're really wanting to work with me and don't know what you want to do or chat a little. You can set up an appointment and you can have some time to see what is a good path to with me. Yeah.
Love it. We will make sure to have links to all of that in the show notes. Definitely. Yeah, you sound magical. I mean, I know you are magical, but I know for so many people, it's really that bit of an initiation into the path that gives us permission to follow our own intuition. And it can be really hard to do that without that person just like sparking the soul in that way. So yeah, cool. I love that you do that work. I didn't know that. I'm okay. Signing up. I guess before we go, and I'd just like to know if there's anything else. Oh, actually, 2 questions before we go. First of all, what is your vision for the collective?
So I had this vision when I was up on Mount Hawaii East, also Mount Hood. And it was seeing like the grid of light of the planet, and that each like point of light was a person, a community, a garden, a fairy. Like it was this shining light of their full spirit expression and beauty and color and radiance. And that each one of us, as we do that in whatever way that is for us, we are broadcasting that out brightly, like the sun, right? Or like a star. And so I was seeing that, and I'm seeing this vision of, each one of us, community and tree, whatever. Like the more we shine our light, it connects with all the other lights. And then pretty soon we're just all light, right? So it was this way of just expanding ourselves in the grid and that oneness. So more and more that's happening on Earth. Even as we're seeing so much destruction and chaos and despair, like know that the light is just getting brighter and brighter and brighter. And to be part of that, like seeing if each one of us can find ways to find joy, to find pleasure, to find some way to lift our spirits, and then collectively it's happening, and to trust that. Because I think there's a lot that people that aren't seeing from that perspective. So I'm just sharing that like eagle eye, right? That when you lift from above, it's a beautiful radiance that I see, and that and I know you too. Both are like, this is what we're creating and why we're doing to get, turn the lights on. Let's all turn the lights on. They've been off for too long. Turn the switch. If it's off, dim light, brighten it up a little, right? How do you brighten your light? And just, I want to add this because it's such a beautiful thing. I've gone through a lot of, hard things in my life, and it's not like I've had it easy, like most of us. And to arrive at this place now feels pretty dang good. And what I notice is like when I'm in alignment, following my intuition and doing my path, it's like my heart feels like it's glowing inside. It feels like a sun, and it feels love glowing. And so it's like we can use, our heart, our glow, our feeling of a glow, our feeling of happiness to guide us. Say, okay, we're doing exactly what we need to do, right? So I can feel the love. I can feel the glow. And if you aren't feeling it, I know a lot of people are struggling. Like, just what is it that can glow your heart? Like, do that.
Thank you, Camilla. Is there anything else you'd like to bring present before we close?
I just want to thank you two so much for sharing this time and experience, and honor the work that you both do, and how you are really showing up in such a magical, honoring way, taking this healing and stewardship and honoring to others that are creating their businesses. And such beautiful work. I know I've worked with you before in my business, and it's just been so beautiful and helpful for that part of my life. And so thank you for what you both share. I guess the last thing, put your belly on the earth, everybody. Go out and lay down, put your belly on the earth. She loves you.
Yay. Thank you so, so much for being here and for sharing that. I love this put your belly on the earth idea too. I think we keep hearing about our feet, but yeah, get right down and give her a hug. And we will right after this, and maybe before the next one, Thank you so much, Camilla, for being here. And yeah, if you've been listening or at all inspired, definitely check out everything Camilla is doing. Especially, I would say that consultation call, you might not even know what you need to know. So thank you so, so much. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Softpreneur podcast. If it resonated with your ethos and your soul, we would be so grateful to you if you leave a review wherever you listen to your podcast.
This helps us grow so much, and it also helps more visionary business owners find the show so they can make their dream life their real life. So many blessings and love.